All right, continuing on some of these preview videos. I've already made my kind of big preview video of talking about kind of broad strokes, but now let's get into some details because this is also interesting and definitely you learn some fascinating things when doing stuff like this. Let's just talk about Nick Bosa and how are they going to block Nick Bosa, because this is a big time matchup. This is a heavyweight matchup with Nick Bosa against these tackles, and he likes to go against the right tackle typically, but he will bounce around as every edge rusher does. If we look at Nick Bosa's PFF grades here, you see that he is the second highest graded edge rusher this season. He is elite. He is that guy, and so definitely you have to pay attention to him. 15th best run defense grade and 3rd best pass rush grade. So usually he's a mismatch against anybody. But what's interesting is Detroit kind of has tackles who have bullied everybody they've gone against all year. First, Penei Sewell, which it was weird because everyone talked about him coming out of college, and then like this year he's been amazing, and I feel like he doesn't get talked about a ton. I mean, again, he was a first team All-Pro, and you're an offensive lineman. How much attention do you really expect? But still, he's been fantastic. The highest graded tackle in football this year, according to Pro Football Focus. That's not left or right tackle. That's just in general. Although, traditionally, it is worth mentioning, you do usually get slightly easier matchups as a right tackle. So that's worth noting. But still, been very good. 16th highest graded pass blocking grade, and then the absurd 93.9 run blocking grade on the season. That's the best in football. As for Taylor Decker, I mean, he's just been consistently great for the Lions, but according to PFF, has actually had his best season in terms of how high he's ranked. Now, he's had a couple years where he's graded slightly higher, but 9th best in football is his highest ranking there. And again, 10th best pass blocking, 20th best run blocking, so really good across the board. So for Bosa, well, okay, interesting situation. How do you go about trying to win? Well, for one thing, you have to know how much attention you're going to get. And while I do think there are other players on this defensive line for San Francisco who can get wins, when it comes to the edge, I think they're going to leave Chase Young one-on-one pretty much all game. I think that's what's going to happen, and we'll see if he can win. So Decker and Sewell, I think you feel okay about a one-on-one matchup against Young in that scenario, even though I do think Young is getting a bit too much criticism. But for Bosa, I mean, look at what the Packers did when they were playing him. On this play, he's actually going to end up having 3 different guys look towards him. The guard's going to start off blocking an interior defensive lineman, but eventually is going to push him aside, and the center's going to take that on. They're paying attention to Bosa. Now, granted, one of these guys is a tight end who's going to just chip Bosa and then run a route, but still. Watch as, okay, the chip, pretty effective chip, slows him down enough, and then you have a guard come through. But even with this, and again, part of this was Jordan Love now, scrambling outside the pocket, but Bosa just keeps fighting and is still in a position where he can try and make a play, even with the extra help. So just because you're doubling him doesn't mean you don't have to worry about him. On this play, Jordan Love does a pretty good job of getting outside the pocket and throwing the ball away. So, good coverage on the back end, and then obviously, Bosa didn't give him too much more time to try and make something happen. So good stuff, across the board there. But still, definitely that's something you can look at as a way to potentially, attack him. And as for the running game, I mean, again, you get to choose where you run the football, right? And while you can't always run it in one direction, I mean, you can run it often in one direction in a favorable situation, and especially if it's a situation like this where Bosa is lined up on your left tackle. Watch as Green Bay is instead going to just flip it towards their right, and Bosa was unblocked in that play. It doesn't matter. He's not getting into the play. It's a pitch to the other side of the field. That's what I'm expecting to see from the Lions at times in this game, and what they should be doing at times in this game. You have Penei Sewell. I mean, just in general, you should be running towards that side as much as possible. Plus, with an injured left guard, I do think that you can do this, and it makes me wonder, do you then line up Bosa more on the right side because of that situation, but then you can still run to the left. It's not like that's what you can't do, but that's again where the interesting chess match comes in of, do you want to put someone like Bosa on someone like Sewell, try to force San Francisco to run towards try to force Detroit to run towards their left, and what do you do if you're Detroit in that scenario? It's just interesting. But also for Detroit, let's watch some film of them. Well, what do they do when they play an elite edge rusher. And the first thing is they still don't give up a ton of pressure. Like, Micah Parsons, listen, he's Micah Parsons, but they were using some really clever ways to try and beat him, right? So in this scenario, okay, Penei Sewell is going to be blocking him one-on-one, but you have a halfback in the backfield. So Parsons doesn't know exactly what's happening. He knows that, Sewell is going to be blocking him. That's what you know. And then there's a halfback who could be blocking him. And usually what you do if you're a halfback is you'll run around towards the outside of the tackle, closer towards the sideline, and kind of push Parsons that way. That's usually how you do a chip. But it's the Detroit Lions, and they certainly don't abide by typical gameplay. They're always creative, and watch what they're going to do here. It's nothing fancy, and it is something you do see from time to time. But watch how this chip is going to come from the inside. Again, it's something you do see from time to time, but Parsons loves his inside moves, and so they did it that way. Bosa also loves his inside moves, and so they're not going to simply just chip you from one side. They might chip you from the inside as well, which is interesting. And again, just another factor in all of this is, yes, Detroit, they're not stupid, right? As much as they have faith in their tackles, they know that certain guys are elite and certain guys you should still pay extra attention to. So I don't think it's going to be as simple as them saying, we got Sewell and Decker, we're good. But also something like this is just so frustrating to play against if you're a pass rusher. So this is a one-on-one matchup. Okay, no help here. All right, finally, let's see what Parsons is going to do against Penei Sewell. This is exciting, right? Well, it's a play action, and the play action means that Parsons starts off run blocking a little bit and then eventually gets over, but by that point, it's too late, and Sewell's so good. I mean, you can't give him a half a step like that, or he's going to block you every single time. And the reality is, just in general, when it comes to offensive linemen versus defensive linemen, if you get a great pass blocking offensive lineman against a great pass rushing defensive lineman, usually the offensive lineman is going to win. You might get one or two plays for Nick Bosa, but definitely, I think if you're San Francisco, you have to look at this as you're not going to get the typical production you're used to from a guy like Nick Bosa. That's just not what I would go into the game expecting to happen. Listen, he's still a great player. He still, I think, could get, attention. He's going to get extra attention, and that might be where a lot of his value comes from, right? Forcing halfbacks to look, to block him instead of just going out and running their route. But he's currently on a 4-game-in-a-row sackless streak. It's been 4 straight games since he has had a sack, and I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if it extends to a 5th one, but again, it's all about, does Detroit pay attention to him, which I think they will, and perhaps just some of that attention Bosa gets could be enough. I actually think where Bosa will really come into play will be in the running game. I think his ability to perhaps, win in those situations and get Detroit to, maybe not want to run the ball in that direction and kind of play things that way could be fascinating. Another thing I didn't bring up, but kind of a game theory thing, you could even consider lining Bosa up on the left side in the running game, just to try and expect that it could be a run to the right then, and then, your linebackers could play a run towards the right. There's that extra factor here, which is just so interesting to me. And I was using, offenses left and offenses right there. So, yeah, so many unique factors here. It's always fun, right? You think, it's defensive lineman, offensive lineman. Just go, obviously, there's a lot of technique, but sometimes you're just like, okay, whatever. They'll go and either they'll get wins or they won't. Well, no, there's always so much more to it than that, and that's what happens, what will happen here on Sunday. So yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from ya, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.